Hello, my beautiful bookish people. In this video, I'll be going over my mid-May reading wrap-up. As you can see, I've been having a rather slow reading month. I've also read an audiobook of the 5th book of The Wheel of Time, aka The Fires of Heaven by Robert Greene. And I'm not really going to talk about it because it's the 5th book in a series and I don't want to do spoilers. Just know that I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm also about well over halfway through the 6th book. So I guess I should include that here. I don't know. I know that I've also really been enjoying the 6th book because of the plot developments that happen, so I haven't hit that wall that people describe yet of a lot of side story stuff. Or at least I don't feel like I'm getting side story stuff at the moment. And I also read an e-copy of V.E. Schwab's ExtraOrdinary, which is a graphic novel series that is taking place as kind of a prequel to her villain series. So vicious and vengeful, it's the same universe. And I don't have a whole lot to say about it because it's issue number 0 and it's a graphic novel. The art on the cover matches the art in the book, but it's so short because it's written like a comic that if I say anything about it, it's all going to be spoilers. So there's that for you, I guess. Now, let's talk about the first book that I read, which is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. Let's start with the book blurb. An outsider who can travel between worlds discovers a secret that threatens her new home and her fragile place in it. In a stunning sci-fi debut that's both a cross-dimensional adventure and a powerful examination of identity, privilege, and belonging. Multiverse travel is finally possible, but there's just one catch. No one can visit a world where their counterpart is still alive. Enter Kara, or is it Kara, whose parallel selves happen to be exceptionally good at dying, from disease, turf wars, or vendettas they couldn't outrun. Kara's life has been cut short on 372 worlds in total. On this Earth, however, Kara has survived, identified as an outlier and therefore a perfect candidate for multiverse travel. Kara is plucked from the dirt of the wastelands. Now, she has a nice apartment on the lower levels of the wealthy and walled-off Wiley City. She works and shamelessly flirts with her enticing yet aloof handler, Dell, as the two women collect off-world data for the Eldridge Institute. She even occasionally leaves the city to visit her family in the wastes, though she struggles to feel at home in either place. So long as she can keep her head down and avoid trouble, Kara is on a sure path to citizenship and security. But trouble finds Kara when one of her 8 remaining doppelgangers dies under mysterious circumstances, plunging her into a new world with an old secret. What she discovers will connect her past and her future in ways she could have never imagined, and reveal her own role in a plot that endangers not just her world, but the entire multiverse. And yes, I would say that that's a pretty darn good explanation of what to expect in this book. As for an overall rating, I'm not really sure how to rate it because my star rating system is by rereadability, and a lot in this book really stuck out to me, which means I'm probably not going to reread it super often because it's that memorable. But I can totally see myself rereading this. I'm just not sure of how often. If you're looking for a book with racial diversity, a book that talks about classism, has LGBTQIA representation, and talks about sex work in a positive manner, then you may want to check this book out. I'm not always the best at content warnings, so you might want to look those up as well, but the ones that I noticed is mentions of addiction, mentions of child abuse, child neglect, a lot of death, as described in the blurb, some domestic abuse, gore. There's also homophobia that is mentioned, and it's brought up as a talking point as well. Lots of murder, lots of death, implied rape, but there isn't a scene about it. It just kind of fades out and back in. And, of course, racism and classism. I did feel like annotating at the time, and I am so glad that I did, because I have pulled several quotes out of this book, because I don't know if philosophical is quite the right wording to go along with this, but it really gets pretty deep on some subjects. Like, I'll just read you some of my favorite quotes. Also, my hand's getting tired from holding this up, so I'm gonna put this back up here and read from my notes on my computer. Also, this means brackets where I've exchanged similar wording. When I walk into the new church, my shoes click loudly in a crowd of heels too worn down to match the sound. It shames me more than it shames them, but it does shame us both. On page 30, but anything is possible once you convince yourself it's necessary. On pages 37 through 38, but when the company looks at applying analysts, they don't see their skill. They see their credentials, background, and education. The people Eldridge hires have to prove they're unfit despite their background. You'll have to do the opposite, and to do that, you need to be infallible where they are flawed. On page 60, you can never know a single person fully, not even yourself. Even if you think you know yourself in your safe glass castle, you don't know yourself in the dirt. Even if you hustle and make it in the rough, you have no idea if you would thrive or die in the light of real riches, if your cleverness would outlive your desperation. On page 121, a fallen angel is a demon, a being who can enact great change either way. On page 150, an easy life isn't a blessing. Easy doesn't mean happy. Alive doesn't mean anything at all. Sometimes the path to an easy life makes you miserable. The only person I've ever heard value happiness is the former empress. She named her son Happy, hoping it would be true. She knew the cost of an easy life and the uselessness of a long one. She had both. She wished neither for her child, only that he at some point be happy. Was he? Was anyone? On page 167, that makes it worse, she says. Being bought, not forced. The words of someone who's never been forced. Page 191. I understand that the multiverse means there are many of you, and some live and some die. But I believe, there is a reason for those who live. Death can be senseless, but life never is. There's a reason you're here and she's not. And the reply is, people get lucky every day. On page 240, every year walled cities get richer and more developed, and every year rural provinces get poorer and sicker. The other side of the scale tips down because of their rise, and they do nothing to balance it. I'm supposed to care about these 5 when they have ignored entire plagues just outside these walls? I will give their deaths the same courtesy they've given the deaths of my people and yours. I'm going to kindly look away. And those are some of my favorite quotes from the book. If any of that sounds at all interesting and you're ready for a pretty gritty sci-fi, I'd highly recommend picking up a copy. And next we have Amari and the Night Brothers. I believe this came out in January of this year, and I cannot tell you how many times people have asked me, have you read this yet? And now I can say yes. Yes, I have, and I am so glad that I did, and so glad that other people recommended it to me. If you're looking for a book that kind of makes you feel the same way you did when you read some books by She Who Must Not Be Named, but it does a way better job than those books, especially hitting the ground running from the very beginning, I would highly recommend you pick up this book. Let's read the book blurb, shall we? Amari Peters has never stopped believing her missing brother, Quentin, is alive. Not even when the police told her otherwise, or when she got in trouble for standing up to bullies who said he was gone for good. So when she finds a ticking briefcase in his closet containing a nomination for a summer tryout at the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, she's certain the secretive organization holds the key to locating Quentin. If only she can wrap her head around the idea of magicians, fairies, aliens, and other supernatural creatures all being real. Now she must compete for a spot against the kids who've known about magic their whole lives. No matter how hard she tries, Amari can't seem to escape their intense scrutiny and doubt, especially once her own supernatural enhanced talent is deemed illegal. With an evil magician threatening the supernatural world and her classmates thinking she's an enemy, Amari has never felt more alone. But if she doesn't stick it out and pass the tryouts, she may never find out what happened to Quentin. So, if that at all sounds like a fun time to you, I'd highly recommend you pick it up, because that is a fabulous synopsis. Like The Space Between Worlds, this book also talks about racism and classism and bullying. There is a small aspect of abandonment, but it's not talked about a whole lot. They also touch on a lot of discrimination and prejudice. And, of course, like the blurb says, disappearance, because her brother just disappeared one day, and she is about to find out what happened. So that's all I have for you in this video. If you've made it this far, go ahead and leave me a globe or world emoji in the comments below. And if you don't have an emoji, just say world. And, you know, have you read any of these books? Are you looking forward to reading any of them now? Let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!